Okay, so this is my second time doing this because the first one I did was too long. I guess I was blabbering, but yeah, I'm gonna try to speed it up this time. So yeah, I'm doing the first lecture of chapter 6, which is an intro to metabolism. This first slide is not really the main purpose of this lecture, but a living cell is a miniature chemical factory. We know that all parts of the cell work together to make a common good, which I think is what they're referring to as like a chemical factory. Like you need energy to perform work is what the second bullet point is saying. We know that. And yeah, organisms can convert energy to light. This is known as bioluminescence. I highlighted it, but I don't think you really need to know about it. So yeah, let's move on. So metabolism, it's just all the chemical reactions in an organism. And it is important to note that it happens within the cell. It happens with molecules in the cell interacting with each other. It's not outside of the cell. It's not between two cells. It's between multiple molecules inside the cell. A metabolic pathway is just kind of the line or the lifeline of, oh my god, the trash truck is coming down the street and it's making a beep 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 noise. Do you hear it? You probably don't hear it, but I hear it. Oh, there go the dogs. But a metabolic pathway, it's just starting with the molecule, following what it does, like what its interactions are, and then ending with a specific product. The last bullet point is just saying that each step is catalyzed by a specific enzyme. We know that enzymes are they help speed up reactions, which is what a catalyst or catalyzing is. So here is an example. We start with molecule A and we end with the product, which is D, and we see the multiple reactions going on with it, and the enzymes helping it speed up. So there are two pathways you need to know about: catabolic and anabolic. They're basically the opposites of each other. So catabolic is the release of energy by breaking down bigger things into simpler compounds, and anabolic is taking in energy to build up like more complex things from simpler ones. The way I think about it is that if you were to make a new building, you have a big building, but you're going to break it down. So this would be an example of catabolic, and you break it down into say the building was made of bricks, into lots of little bricks, which you can use for other things. And it's when you're breaking it down, it releases the energy of the building. And then anabolic is when you take back that energy and build it up from the bricks that you just had to make this bigger building again. There are a couple examples. Catabolic is like cellular respiration. Anabolic is the synthesis of proteins from amino acids. You should know about that. Cellular respiration, I think, is what we're going to go into a lot in this chapter. If you've taken any other higher science level class, like anatomy is the only one I can reference because it's the one I've taken, but we learned about cellular respiration a lot. So, and then bioenergetics is a study of how energy flows through living organisms. That's kind of another point of what we're focusing on in this lecture. So I'm not going to spend any time on this. You should know what energy is. If you haven't, then the school system has miserably failed you. So again, we're going to go over kinetic and potential energy, which you should also know. I was going to take it out, but Miss Johnson was like, no, we should review. And I was like, okay. Kinetic energy has to do with motion. Thermal energy is a type of kinetic energy, and it deals with the randomness and the random movement of atoms and molecules. Heat and light are both parts of thermal energy. The way I organized this too was I wrote kinetic energy and then I indented and did a bullet point of thermal energy, and then I indented again underneath and did arrows of light and heat because they're examples, so that might help you organize. I don't know, but that's how I did it. If you want to know, you probably don't. Potential energy is the energy that matter possesses because of a location or structure. Again, you should really already know what kinetic and potential energy is, but if you need these definitions, you can take them down. Chemical energy is a type of potential energy, and it's the energy that is released in a chemical reaction which I think we know usually is heat, or what we focused on, and yeah, energy can go from one like form to another.
Energy is the capacity to cause change. Kinetic energy is the energy associated with motion. Energy that is not kinetic is called potential energy, and is energy that matter possesses because of its location or structure. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, but converted from one form to another. This property is called the conservation of energy.
The bow and arrow start out with low potential energy. As the archer's arm pulls back the string, kinetic energy from the arm's motion is converted to potential energy in the tense bowstring and arrow. When the bowstring is released, the stored potential energy is converted into the kinetic energy of the moving arrow. When the arrow hits the target, its motion ceases. If energy is neither created nor destroyed, where did the energy of the flying arrow go? Let's rewind and look at kinetic energy in more detail. When energy is converted from potential energy to kinetic energy, some of the energy can be used to do work, but some energy ends up as heat, a type of kinetic energy. Heat is the random motion of atoms and molecules. As the arrow flies through the air, heat is generated by friction between the arrow and air molecules. When the arrow strikes the target, all the energy becomes heat energy. The heat energy is rapidly transferred into the air and spreads out. Heat energy is a very disordered kind of energy. It has the highest amount of entropy, or disorder, of any kind of energy. Where do our muscles get energy to perform work, such as pulling back a bowstring? Our bodies use the chemical energy from food to perform work. Chemical energy is a form of potential energy. When your body breaks down food molecules, the stored potential energy from food can be converted to kinetic energy. The stored chemical energy in food is released in your muscle cells during the process of cellular respiration. Using oxygen, cellular respiration converts chemical energy from food to another form of chemical energy called ATP. Water, H2O, and carbon dioxide, CO2, are byproducts of cellular respiration. The potential energy of ATP can be converted to kinetic energy. Some of the kinetic energy is used to do useful work, such as pulling back a bowstring, but the heat energy that is generated cannot be used to do work.
Okay, so we heard a couple of terms that we haven't gone over yet, but we will. I'm just checking how much time I have. Okay, I still have time. I've only done 8 minutes. So next, this is just a picture. I'm gonna briefly go over this, but it's kind of just giving an example of what we've just gone over. The diver has potential energy on the platform. The way I think of it is like you have the potential to do something. So like since he's on the diving board, he has the potential to jump off like this one guy. So you can kind of think of it, it's like the stored anticipation, and you can think of that as the energy of what he may do. When the diver is jumping off, he's converting potential to kinetic because he's moving through like the air, and he jumped off, which is movement. The diver in the water has less potential energy because he's not in a specific location or structure. He's swimming through the water. And then the woman climbing up the ladder, she's moving, which is kinetic energy, but she's moving onto the platform, which is, again, the potential that she could jump off again or stuff like that because she's on a specific structure or location. There are 2 laws of thermodynamics that we are going to go over. Thermodynamics is the study of energy and transformations. There are also 2 systems, which I'm going to briefly go over. There's an open system, which kind of implies what it is. It's where there can be energy and matter transferred between something and its surroundings. It's important to note that all organisms are open systems because we interact and we exchange and share with things surrounding us. And then the second one is an isolated system. It's what it is. It's what it sounds like. Like, it's isolated. It can't exchange with things around it. So the first law of thermodynamics is energy in the universe is constant. This is also known as the principle of conservation of energy. You should know what it is. It's so like basic, and like it's like you should know what it like. it's revolved around everything that we've learned. Basically, energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can be transferred or transformed. I also kind of think of this as like water. So all the water on Earth is all it's ever been and all it ever will be, so it can't be created or destroyed, but it can be transferred or transformed into different things. So like the ice caps were originally frozen, now they're melting, despite what some people think. It's definitely because of like climate change and okay, not gonna talk about that, but so yeah, there's just different parts of water everywhere and they're in different forms. That's kind of like energy. It can't be created or destroyed, but it's in different parts and different things and it can be changed. So this is just a picture. We're gonna go over it in more detail. So here's a bear and they're pointing to the fish in its mouth as chemical energy. I think what they're saying is this is representing the first law. So when the bear eats the fish, it will get the energy from the fish and it'll go to help the bear live and prosper. But it's not creating energy or it's not being destroyed. It's just transferring from the fish to the bear. The second law is that every energy transfer or transformation increases entropy in the universe. We heard about entropy in the animation. It's just a measure of disorder or randomness. Yeah, and then the first bullet point is just what I was saying earlier, that energy is lost as heat sometimes. Yeah. So here's a picture of the bear again. Since it's running, heat is being let off because it's a kinetic movement and such like that. See, kinetic energy. Going back to that. And then, sorry, I'm flipping my notes. And then the entropy is just being released. CO2 and H2O is what it's letting off. So yeah, it's increasing entropy in the universe because all of these things being let out, especially the heat, is just making it more random. It's not like going into an organized system. So cells always convert organized forms of energy to heat. How much time do I have left? Yikes, I only have 3 minutes. That's such a yikes. Spontaneous process, it's pretty self-evident. It occurs without energy input, and it can be quick or slow, and it increases entropy in the universe. And then here's just my review. All of these slides, all of these points are basically just saying cells take things from a lesser form and make them into a more complex or bigger form. So ordered structures from lesser materials, and then they replace ordered forms of matter from lesser ordered forms, like I said. And energy flows. Oh, this is kind of different. So energy in an ecosystem starts as light, but exists as heat. So that's pretty important to know too. And then, so evolution doesn't, even though it's like complex organisms, it doesn't violate the second law of thermodynamics. Again, we're not going to spend too much time on that in this lecture. I don't know if it's like evident in other ones. Even though entropy may decrease in some systems, it will increase in others. In the total universe entropy, that's just how it is. I'm not completely sure why, but it kind of makes sense in my mind. And then organisms are islands of low entropy in an increasingly random universe, and I think that's cute. The way, I don't know, this is so stupid, but the way I think of it is like Neverland and like Peter Pan. So like the organisms is like an island of low entropy, so it's like low in like hecticness and chaos and randomness, and it's like low entropy because it's just like kids having fun, except, you know, like Hook. But then in an increasingly random universe, I think of it as like the adult world and how everyone's always freaking out and stressed and stuff. So that's the end of my lecture. I do not know who is going next. Sorry if you heard dogs or me gulping my coffee or responding to Snapchats. But yeah, I'm done. Thanks.